folks. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we are having a very informal program today. So our dear friend Rachel Mislevy, who was our planned speaker, lives in Ashland. She's the Side with Justice coordinator, or Side with Love coordinator for climate justice for UUA now. But given the cold weather, creative review about green sanctuary in UU already. Just given that is something that we had the chance to already get certified for, and Beth and I were connecting on that as a little review because they have done some updates, and that was partly what Rachel was going to talk about today. And then what hopefully is the main time for today, I thought it would be really cool for anyone like myself. Basically, we'd love to hear a little history and oral accounting of the backstory behind the climate action team and how UUCD was able to get green sanctuary certification for the first time. So basically, it's going to be a two-parter today, plenty of Q&A or interactive discussion, given that it's all just us in-house. But again, basically, I'll just go over briefly the current UUA's certification for green sanctuary, because it is updated. And then we'll have the chance to have Beth and Sally and Barb, whoever is willing to basically do a little bit of backstory about our climate action team's history here at UUCD. So with that, let's just jump right in. So the biggest thing that I wanted to highlight, and I'll put this in the chat for everyone joining in remotely at home. It's great to see you here today. A little bit of history. So basically, Green Sanctuary started within UU in 1989 and intended from the very beginning to provide a roadmap for congregations to deepen or start their own climate justice work. And so the current iteration of what we're looking at, and what Rachel will kind of walk us through when she's able to join this spring, is basically known as Green Sanctuary 2030 now. So it's an aspirational vision, and it's been updated to include a bigger focus on congregational justice. One thing that I was surprised to learn is that only 30% of UU congregations actually across the country have received Green Sanctuary accreditation. So we are a part of that esteemed body. Thank you very much, Ruby. And 32 congregations now since then, Rachel has said, have begun the process to get certified here as part of Green Sanctuary 2030. So basically, the first step in a Green Sanctuary accreditation process now asks congregations to identify Indigenous peoples whose lands they occupy and to research historic moments of oppression in the area. We have obviously engaged on some of those conversations within a congregation, having Reverend Jim Bear Jacobs. I know the Racial Justice Action Team has been active in some of those areas too. But there is a thorough program that if people are interested, we can dive into more with Rachel to talk about what that action plan and discernment looks like. And basically, the other thing that Rachel wanted us to highlight is that basically the three current areas outside of that backstory or part of preparation ahead of time include the mitigation side of things. So what is the congregation or our building doing to reduce our own emissions? The adaptation and resilience, what are we providing in terms of space for the community to support as we adjust to a warming world and provide that resilience and support to the larger Duluth area? And then justice, how are we showing up as a congregation within the larger biome? Obviously, I know congregationally we had the chance to talk through our decision and vote on line 3 to make that statement of support for the work that was that in 2020, I believe? I think so, yeah. So basically taking 2021, okay, taking stronger stands on positions around fossil fuel infrastructure or climate justice overall. So anyways, if people are interested in learning more, Rachel will be back here for the overview in the spring. And the only other thing I was going to highlight here, because this is partly what I've been reviewing here, is the piece, yeah, perfect. So yeah, here's a little bit more about the mitigation side of things. This is a slide deck that Rachel shared with me. So reduce the carbon footprint of your congregation, your homes, your community. Think beyond the walls of the congregation, a lot that we're already doing. And again, in Q&A, let's brainstorm today, even if there are things that people think that we could be doing more, especially as a congregation or a climate action team. Thinking about facility emissions. Big round of applause again to the amazing work that the climate action team led by Beth did for getting solar panels. Yes. That is a huge win, and again, being one of the only, if not the only congregation with both a green roof and solar panels is a huge thing to be proud of, and I think really part of our identity here at UUCD that we have looking forward, certainly something I'm excited about continuing to share the good news on. And then basically the idea of also thinking about not only from a congregational setting, but also what we're doing back at home with our own personal lifestyle emissions, home energy use, diet, transportation, carbon offsets. There's lots of resources on there. And then also community groups, which a lot of us are a part of as well, working on these spaces from energy justice and democracy to public transit, community solar, or federal programs. And then to explore a little bit more when I was talking about the adaptation and resilience sphere, basically thinking about both adaptation to increase or to insulate us from the increasing severe climate conditions impact, and then resilience, how we can cultivate spiritual, relational, and infrastructural strength to respond to ever-changing climate impacts. And so, again, this is a great little graphic that can talk about extreme heat, some of the other things that congregations have been doing that we've also featured for some of our forums: food security projects, disaster preparedness, community crisis response, all of these areas to be knit together and have kind of more congregational awareness and support on. Thank you, buddy.
But he got so many hugs, you know he's warm enough.
Yeah.
I would say about the rate increases too. Equilibrium 3 puts out, which is an organization that works primarily in Lincoln Park on a variety of issues for that low income. Equilibrium 3 that works on lots of issues for the area of Lincoln Park, which is one of our lowest income areas in Duluth. They have a newsletter. In the latest one, there's a piece about rate structures and low income people, because half the people in Lincoln Park are renters, which makes it extra difficult to figure out how to become more efficient or lower your energy bills. So that's an aside. But I'm going to go back to some history here, and I'm going to hold this up for the people who are online. This is a photocopy of our original Green Sanctuary certification. And with it, I'm going to pass an article that was in the newspaper right after we got it, just for historical interest. Those are from 2005, but as Barb Buckley could say, we started thinking about this really in the 1990s. We started having discussion groups around issues of ecological economics and green practices and so forth, really when we were still at 1802 East First Street in our congregation, and then a lot when we were up in Winona Street. So, and that building, I don't know if you're familiar with this now, the local Islamic Community Center. We sold to them. And that's where we were when we looked at the Green Sanctuary certification process for the first time. And we proposed to the congregation to go into that process about 2003. And Barb, you can just raise your hand if, you know. And David and Barb were chairing the Green Sanctuary Committee at that time. And Barb was our esteemed writer who actually put together the application to the UUA, or at that time what was called the Seventh Principle Project. So you know our seventh principle is respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. And the idea of the Green Sanctuary program was ways for congregations to embody that principle in their actions, education, and advocacy, I guess. So we had a long history of doing things. The thing that tends to be most top of mind for people is our outdoor work. And when we first started, of course, we had this land, but we weren't we weren't here. And if you look at the article that goes with the certification, you'll see some pictures of people removing buckthorn from this property, because one of the things that we said we were going to do was to clear invasive species. And those of you like Eric who are still, or Blake who are on the outdoor team, know that we are still working on removing invasive species. Both buckthorn, tansy are the most common. But that was one of the early ones, but we looked as a group at possibly updating our certification in 2018. Oh, I should say in 2005, we were the first Minnesota congregation to become a green sanctuary. And there really weren't so many nationally. The congregation served by Reverend Bruce Johnson in Vermont had been through that process. So when he came here, he was pleased to know we were already a green sanctuary. So I'm going to take a minute to go through the things we listed in 2018 when we were thinking of updating our certification, but then never really got around to the paperwork. Outdoor sanctuary care and development. We oversaw, we did a lot of work, partly with Miller Creek landscaping and removing, invasives. We took care of trees. The pond area was constructed. This is primarily by Bunter Knowles, because we had lost 2 vernal ponds in the construction of the building. And he wanted a replacement for the forms of life that were dependent on ponds. We retained a lot of trails, and we added swamp milkweed and lots of other natives around the pond. When we built here, 2008, of course, we got the green roof, and Giger could take a bow for all the work she did on the construction committee, the building committee, and because what we tried, and that group tried in particular, was to build as green as we possibly could. And finances are always a consideration here, but we did some excellent work. And I think that Paresh was involved in making the kitchen as green as possible in terms of the materials that we used there. So we did what we could. And then over the years, as we've had a little more money, we've done some more things. For example, when we carpeted this room, we made the decision to use carpet squares, which are more environmentally friendly than rolling out carpet, because then you have to tear it all out if something. And then I said they extremely wisely chose a color and a pattern that doesn't show coffee. So that, and the flooring in the most recently in the nursery school area is bamboo, which is more cork. Excuse me, you're right. We went through that. Thank you, Barb.
Recycled fibers.
With recycled fibers in it, she said. So, and that, I should move over here. That is, again, a thought concerning our impact on the environment. We received, and I don't know if I have it here, an award from Lake Superior Day Association, or the Great Association, for our treatment of water here, because our water runs into Chester Creek from here, but having a pond and leaving things natural and so forth was a plus in keeping the water clean. And the other thing we decided when we built, when we ended up with the garage underneath, was to keep the asphalt footprint as small as possible, so that there is less runoff and more gravel around. So there were lots of decisions involved there that had to do with keeping as green as we could. Then we developed a pollinator garden. We actually have 2 over there, and on the hillside. When this building was built, we had to put the sewer system up to Chester Way. That was a city requirement. So they had to dig up that whole hillside, and it turned into 100% tansy. So the outdoor sanctuary, Ed and Linda are here, but they really spearheaded that. We put black plastic over the entire hillside for 2 years, and then we got Shoreview natives to come in, put a ground cover down, compostable ground cover and lots of little pollinator-friendly plants, which are now on the hillside. Okay. So, and since then, of course, we've done a lot of maintaining of that area. Other things that under the Green Sanctuary activities that are listed here in 18, where we do some fundraising projects that are been sustainable. We do the spring hanging basket sale, as you may know, and when we use that one because they don't use any neonicotinoids or other chemicals in their baskets. That's on Rice Lake Gardens. We had a holiday greenery in Poinsettias sale, greenery coming from, maybe, why do I forget right now? Same people who run the farmers market. That raised some money for us. And then we have the gardeners market, which is another effort that Barb has been involved with, and Naomi in particular, and that is people bringing in their extra produce from their gardens, and then we offer it here for sale for free will offering, and we split the money between food shelf and our general fund. So also in the past, we've had this, and we still do have this, it was called Treasures of the Earth, but now we call it our holiday sale, where we do lots and lots of regifting, recycling. So trying to do some thoughtful, sustainably based fundraising projects. Another big area that we work on is education, lots of forums, if you know. I'm not even going to go through the many of those. At one point, we did send Julie McDonald. We helped sponsor her to go to Växjö, Sweden, one of our sister cities, for training on green cities. And she brought back some ideas for us. And we've done reading courses as well as forums. So let me look on here. Some of this stuff overlaps with, but this is still up with Climate Action Team, and we'll talk a little more about some of the advocacy. But we have planned and participated in climate-related community events, and we'll talk about that with climate. Religious education projects. These are all areas that we needed to address if we were going to recertify. A little different from 2030, I think, but we have the Green Sanctuary annual summer book read, where we choose a book that is in some way related to care of our earth, and we've read lots of different books and discussed them. That's become an annual event at the Jan's house with the potluck. And now but yeah, I'll go there. And then we've done films and webinars, and we've had lots of people come in, and we've sponsored a lot of events here. Recently, we sponsored, the most recent was right before the pandemic shut us down. We sponsored a forum about the Red Lake solar project, and got some people to make some loan investment in that, where they're working on becoming more energy independent on Red Lake, and that's still ongoing. Then everything kind of shut down for a while, but there were a lot. I don't even want to go through all of these. So then we get to worship. These are all areas, and I'm going through this because, yeah.
I just want to say also that the I'm from East Church, and the UU team and climate group here has been an inspiration and also very helpful to other congregations who want to emulate what is happening here.
Okay, thanks. And we'll get more focus on climate. I'm going to, Sally and I are going to talk specifically about climate action stuff. Right now, what I'm kind of going through all the areas that the UUA has looked at and asked us to report on for being a green sanctuary. So we've had a lot of these different films, and then worship services. We did for a long number of years at Lake Superior Day. We did the worship service, usually involved with Earth Day. Other kinds of services. So those are areas that we have done. I see that in 2009, we hosted the Prairie Star District Conference, and we did building tours, and we have done building tours, and David did a film about our green roof, which showed on WBSE, I believe, and it's been circulated. So there's been lots of things, you know, that's been almost 20 years, and all the way through that time, we've been doing a number of things. And Barb, you have things to
As you were talking in the beginning, or Brett was talking.
I don't know,
This will serve as.
either that or somebody's
I
having
was
pictures.
Climate wasn't even much of an issue. It should have been back when we got started, way back when we got started. And then it occurred to me that one of my life aha moments was because of that group. I think it was David, but I'm not sure, who invited Phil Cook, if I remember his name correctly. Is that right? To talk about peak oil. And to me, that was a whole new topic from the revelation. And I've remembered it ever since. I do not remember every talk I've been to, but I certainly do remember that one. So we did get involved in climate right away, but in a very different way. It certainly has expanded. Thanks.
more comments in the back.
I just want to affirm what Barb says. That was the exact meeting that I woke up to climate change, and that was a long time ago. But I really wanted to speak just quickly about David Broadwell has also done a video of this entire building, and it is on our website.
And I just wanted to say that when we did asphalt the parking lot, I was on the board when the board was talking about sealing it, because that was what everybody recommended and everybody did. And when we brought that to the forum, it was a member of the congregation who raised their hand and said, "Why would you do that? It's got environmental issues." And so the congregation's awareness and input has been critical to our decisions too, where the board ended up doing a bunch of research and deciding that it was sufficient to seal the cracks and not seal the whole pavement. And I wanted to mention that just because the board simply wasn't aware of that. And it's something that people don't get education about. So it isn't just the Green Sanctuary Committee, it's the whole congregation that can have a role here.
Thank you, that's really important. I think there's another forum that was really important, and someone else will remember the name of the person who talks about how our ecosystem is going to change as it warms, in particular the boundary waters. Who is that? What? No, it wasn't Lee Freely, he worked, I think, for, yeah, John Pastor. John Pastor, yeah, right. And that was another, when we were still at Winona, that was a real wake up for me in terms of what we were going to see around us as the climate warmed. The movement away from the pine forests into kind of oak scrub areas that we see farther south. So. Okay.
Comments here for our online people. No.
Okay, we're going to go on to climate action. I'm going to turn this over to Sally Munger, because she was the person who said climate action is the overarching issue of our time, again and again, until we decided to say another phrase for that I heard from Jody Slick, Equilibrium 3, was climate change is a threat multiplier. Doesn't matter where you look, anything that's a threat, whether it's health or infrastructure, anything, climate change multiplies those threats. So Sally got us started being active here.
Before you, please intrude before we go to this next segment and point out to you the picture on the screen. That is our first congregation, David and I, in the mid-1970s. It's still a fellowship. We met in a little house in a neighborhood of the University of Georgia. Athens is the home of the University of Georgia. And they have since built a lovely church that is nestled in the woods. It's been a long time since we visited their new building, but it warms my heart to see that congregation and note look closely
Yep.
at the mix in that congregation.
Right here.
Athens, Georgia, right there. Yeah, the UU Fellowship of Athens,
It's the
Georgia.
same fellow.
We started our life.
Well, one thing I'm really thrilled this morning, got up and I saw what the temperature was and I thought, oh, there are gonna be 2 people here. So there are a lot of people who care about this, so I'm glad. Okay, so some of you know that I am rather naive. And I used to think when Bill McKibben talked about 350.org, the whole world was going to wake up and say, hey, we need to do something right away. But this didn't seem to move people as fast as I thought it should. So I had read a lot about climate change, and I knew that the Unitarians at a General Assembly had done a statement of conscience on this. So I was trying to figure out a way that we could wake up our congregation on this. And so Julie O'Leary, who's a member here, and I went and had lunch with Reverend Bruce Johnson. And I thought, okay, I'll ask him to use his bully pulpit and speak about this. And everyone at the UUCD will say, let's spring into action immediately. Well, his thought was, Sally, why don't you guys start a climate action team? So we put out the alert, and a lot of the people who are part of this now have been a part of it since 2014, when we started in June of 2014. I thought I would read you, and the other thing, I'm not sure, does everybody here know that the climate action team is under the Green Sanctuary? What do you want? No? Better?
Yeah.
So when we created, Meredith is concerned, when we created the climate action team, we did a mission and vision statement, and I'm going to read that to you because I think it was well done and something to think about. With respect for the interdependent web of life and the inherent dignity of all forms of life within that web, our mission is to engage within UUCD and the wider community to combat human-caused global climate change. And our vision is to create a lasting paradigm shift from human-centric perceptions and policies and practices, and to rebuild the interdependent web of life. Beth has given you some of the activities we've done a lot over the years to try to educate people both here and in the community. We've participated with Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light is probably our strongest partner. We also partner with a Citizens Climate Lobby that Brett is part of to get the message out that there is urgency to this and that people need to get involved to make something happen. The thing that I am proudest about here is, and Barb, Beth, and others here, we had to go on the 3 times it is a charm, but we finally got the solar put on the building here, and I am so glad and grateful to everybody for that. We really have an excellent congregation who gets this and is willing to work on it in the community and continue to really put the message of urgency out there. And that's what I am grateful for. And I'm going to turn this back over to Beth to tell you more about what's going on right now. Woo.
I just passed around a little summary of various things Green Sanctuary, all the areas are doing, we're doing now that I made for the community fair last fall, but it summarizes some of those things. And keep a copy if you want. There's some more over on the table. Now, what was I going to say? Oh, I was going to say, why climate action team is a term that comes out of the UN organization for many, many years. Unitarian Universalists have been big supporters of the United Nations ever since '48 when it was formed, actually. And when Sally went to, or we talked to Bruce Johnson about it, he said, oh, you should be a climate action team. And that's something that was created and formed by the UN organization. Now, that's how we became, and then he told us that should be part of Green Sanctuary. So that's how we ended up there. And Green Sanctuary should have some kind of advocacy piece. So that became that piece. But you, as we'll find out when Rachel visits, there have been many different initiatives around climate through the UUA. And even in our congregation, I would say, with the help of Joe Haberman, who some of you may remember, Joe, the great climate activist, got us to do a process in our congregation that she had done in her congregation, First Unitarian in Minneapolis, which was what she called In Reach, where we talked at length to about 100 of our members and friends and said, what areas of social justice or community work have the most meaning for you? And 3 areas came out in this discussion, and one was racial justice, which we now have the committee for. One was whole issue around gender justice and reproductive rights, which we have the Affirming and Welcoming Committee for, that we are also certified for. And the third one was environment and climate. So we sit structurally under Green Sanctuary, but we are also very much a part of that social justice network. And that's why I think, as Jane said, there are many areas where we can cross work. And particularly as the focus becomes greater on looking at the impacts of climate, the threat multiplier that particularly affects people with fewer resources, people who can't necessarily insulate their house and buy new appliances and all these kinds of things, or even protect themselves from floods and or the kinds of disasters we see. So I think that's become a real important move, and we're talking about doing that some more. Oh, the other thing I'd say about Jo is that she helped us look at the way the UUA talks about social justice and talk about doing work in the practical area. And this in our congregation has been great. We did a lot of energy work, and Giga was important with the lighting and some other portions of the power usage. And we did get an Energy Star certification that Equilibrium 3 staff helped us get for our energy use, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago. So we did a lot of that, and of course we did the solar we've talked about. The composting initiative right now is part of that, because about 25 to 30% of what ends up in the landfill is compostable, and that all gives off methane, and we're beginning to know now that methane, is how many, from 20 to 80 times, I don't know, way more powerful than carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas. And although it only lasts 10 or 20 years, we don't really have 20 years. so anyway, so composting, besides being good for the garden, it has that climate edge to it. So practical, we've done these things and had forums encouraging people to think about their home use. I think we've given out LED light bulbs and that sort of thing too. Second one is educational and forums. Having Brett and Sally on the forum committee has made sure we got climate topics on every year, at least a few of them.
Every week.
because it's a threat multiplier, it fits with everything, right? And so then that education, and then also in terms of community building in the service, to make sure that our services around Earth Day and other areas, we'll see the readings. We even see in the water ceremony and the sacred nature of water.
I'm hearing it.
Readings and other things we do. And then the other piece is advocacy. And this is something that the climate action team, it's only our climate action team, well, our other social justice has to do with signing on to support bills in our state legislature, being part of climate marches and events. Lisa, who was visiting us, was the initiator of the climate emergency resolution for the city council, and we supported that, and that the city council did pass that unanimously. The city of Duluth now has a climate action plan, and looking back in the notes, we did some support telling the council to adopt it 2 years ago, I think, maybe. Yeah, during the pandemic, a very detailed plan. They got a grant for doing. We've been big supporters of the Office of Sustainability in Duluth, and that's Mindy Gramley, who came from UMD, who has been phenomenal. And I think we'll mainly outspoken support, although since she's brought about $30 million in grants into the city, hopefully her position is secure. You know, you never know with the change of administration. Yeah, Lisa? She does need support, Lisa said. She needs, our current new mayoral administration needs to hear that we value this, because if you may have noticed in the last mayoral campaign, our current mayor, there was never one word about climate, not on his website, not in his speech. He simply sidestepped that entirely. And then he has said, well, maybe in my second term, I could look at that. We don't really have that much time. So Mindy works a lot with Equilibrium 3, Jody Slickett together. They put in lots of, got lots of money for different things. And she's also helped all the departments of the city figure out how they can become more efficient, how the fleet can electrify, and redoing all the heating systems in City Hall in a way, really efficient manner. Anyway, so we have been supportive of the city level, and that's important, I think, to our city council and our mayor now. State level, you know, we had lots of legislation last year that was helpful, and now we're trying to get it in place, and then also trying to make sure people understand and take advantage of the Inflation Reduction Act. So one of the things that Climate Action is doing now, some of us have to wade into a 63-page document from the IRS about how we get that 30% rebate we're supposed to get. So if there's anyone here who's good at reading tax documents, there will be a webinar next week about it, might make it easier. But we are to get that money back from our investment and so on. So there's lots of stuff going on. There will continue to be, and you'll see things in the Connect as we ask, particularly as we ask for advocacy, or consider signing petitions, calling, and so forth. And we certainly do work a lot with Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light on that, since they're a statewide organization. We have a lot of work. There are two things that they are doing now. One is called Rise and Repair, and that really is about what would be called climate justice, making sure that low-income communities are not left behind. There's another coalition called Clean Heat, which is kind of about the same thing, getting off fossil fuels for heating, but again, making sure that's more equitable. So those are things that Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light is involved with advocating for at the state. And I think I'm going to leave it at that and leave it for questions, or Brett or Shelly.
I think questions is great. Who has, we have 4 minutes for questions. Anyone wants to-
How did we talk so long? How did I talk so long?
It was great.
Oh, I always take precedence over stuff.
Okay, hand that over.
I was just gonna say that there is a lot of, say, that I think Roger knows this, the mayor, that there's some skepticism on the part of people that are strongly in favor of the environment to his candidate, to his mayorship there. And I think it would be smart if all of us, any of us, wrote him and told him the importance that this is to our community, because I think he would probably listen if he started weighing more than just it's more than just the environment here. It's his commitment in the city and the commitment that we have to him. So I think we should do whatever you can.
Thank you.
So I also want to just underscore the importance of an email or call or something, because Mindy Granley is a fantastic sustainability person for Duluth, and we want to see her stay in that position. So she has even suggested that people, if they're interested, go go ahead and send something and go home and do it. Don't put it off. Do it because it's really an urgent thing. One other thing I'm gonna tell you is Rise and Repair and the ERA have something in common because it looks like we're gonna possibly take a bus down for the first day of the session to be at the rally for the Equal Rights Amendment and Rise and Repair. So if you're interested in that, let me know because we're gonna try to get a regular bus to go down there.
When is it?
February 12th,
What day of the week is that?
Monday.
Just a little bit of information. I've been watching a series on Netflix that deals with You Are What You Eat and the impact it has on our planet when we consume animals. And it is a significant polluter, just to let you know. And it's also good for your body in having the research is phenomenal. If you have a chance to watch it, it's about a 4-part series. You Are What You Eat.
Thank you, and I went, one thing I didn't mention is we had these fall of good food potlucks that Barb was the primary coordinator for a number of years, and a lot of that was on local food and low carbon footprint food, so lots of vegetables and things. It's something that we lost in the pandemic, but hopefully we can begin to look at again. That's certainly the case, and Russ Mattson, who's not here, is really focused on agriculture and the overall carbon footprint of agriculture, which may be at least a third of our entire carbon footprint in this country.
I'm just gonna take this. I just saw Janet, one of our online friends, is asking a little bit more about Rise and Repair, so I'll put a link to that in the chat. And we are at time, so if you do have thoughts on anything that we've